let's talk about a little bit more about that customer acquisition strategy and the marketing.
Yes.
Like you're doing marketing for them. They're paying you for it, right?
Yeah.
And talk about a lot of marketing companies are going to charge, $400, $500, $600 a month to manage Facebook ads. You are doing a lot of the Facebook ad management for franchisees. And what does that look like? How do you charge? I know you charge differently. I know you're doing things so differently. And I know the franchisees absolutely love the model of Facebook ads and Facebook marketing that you're doing. So share that so franchise, buyers and franchisors can start to understand, the brilliance of it.
I have an inherent disdain, hate, loathing for a 2% brand fund. This is standard in the franchise industry, a 2% brand fund. And what that means, guys, is like if you're paying a royalty of 6%, typically franchisors will charge 2% on top of that for what's called a brand fund. And that brand fund is meant to do marketing for you. And they can use it at their discretion in any way possible. And there's not a lot of governance over that 2%. So they could use it for your location to do a national TV ad, which is not going to do anything for you. Or they could also use it to find new franchisees. I mean, we've seen all kinds of gambits on this fund. And I hate that. I absolutely think it's very inefficient and I never want to do that. So what we did instead was, you know what? We're going to perform or you don't pay us, period. And so we manage the ads. You decide how much you want to spend. And then it's $7.50 per completed appointment that comes in your door. And franchisees can think, hey, I would absolutely pay X amount of dollars knowing that I'm going to get this much in return. And we can actually track it out. We actually know per location, for every dollar we spend on advertising, what that returns in revenue for us as a company. And we can say, okay, if you're under this amount, you're break even. At this amount, you're profitable. So continue spending money, reduce the spends. We do reports that tell every single channel and how much you're spending on there and what they're getting out of that per channel. And we have a strategic conversation every month with our franchisees saying, this is what you're getting. And do you want to spend more or less? And really what that did when we switched to this model is it's extremely easy to throw an ad on Facebook. Okay. Anyone can do that. But to throw an ad on Facebook and then target them in multiple different ways with multiple different ads and optimization on that side, then go through the texting process to get them to book an appointment, an email process to get an appointment, and then get them to complete the appointment and become a member, and managing that whole cycle all the way through and finding the members and using them as the audience to target people on Facebook so we can find people like the members and not just the ones that create leads. That whole process has 10 to 15 steps. And if my company is focused on just lead generation and not completed appointments, we miss the boat, we miss the mark, and it's too expensive for the franchisees. So we focus on the right thing, which is in the funnel, and we don't do a brand fund, which creates inefficiencies, and the franchisees are extremely happy with us.
Now, this is for the management of it. That fee per booked appointment is not the ad spend itself, correct?
Yeah, they decide what they want to spend on ads. So they might come back and say, hey, this month I got $1,500 budget. How do you see that we use this? And we're looking at them. We'll look at all the data across all different channels, social, Google, YouTube, video, like everything. And we'll say, okay, I recommend you do X, Y, and Z. And here's the data to support that.
Yep. And then so I think that's brilliant. We should probably do a podcast just on that at some point. Franchisees love that. I would imagine franchisees have to absolutely love that.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard, right? But we've figured it out. I mean, I spend millions and millions of dollars a year on advertising. And so I literally taught a class in college about how to do advertising. This is my forte. I've written books of stuff on this, written books of stuff on this. So I would love to talk about Google, Facebook, everything on there.
Yeah, we'll have to do that. We'll have to do that again. I love it when franchisors, founders like you have a marketing mind. And it's just because we talked to some of our franchisors that we talked to, we're thinking about work with them. We're like, what's your customer acquisition strategy? They're like, it's amazing. You're not going to believe it. Our customer acquisition strategy is referrals. We're like, that's not duplicatable. Like you can't just, put more money to this or scale it this way. So I love it when there's a paid ad strategy to acquire customers. I mean, we all love referrals and they're cheap, but that is not something where you can just, put another quarter and into the machine and it cranks out a customer. So, all right, we're winding down. You have a strategy of going into salon suites. One of our brands at Front Street Equity is Go Glow, and it's spray tanning, and that has a similar strategy. Let's say you are much further along. You've been in many more salon suites than they have, but it's a similar strategy. And I love that. And I think that's brilliant for these retail-based franchisors to be able to have a product or a location like a salon suite to go into for a lot of different reasons. So explain your strategy of salon suites and why is it advantageous? Why do franchisees like that?
Yeah, I mean, let's just look at a market together. Okay. So, let's imagine we're going into Kansas City and we decide, we're a multi unit owner. We want to build a couple locations. So, I purchase as a franchisee a 3-pack. Okay. And the plan is to do one the first year, one the second year, one the third year. And then in 3 years, I'd have 3 flagships opened. And, they would start to grow. And probably in 5 years' time, I would have a pretty good business. I mean, that's a typical franchise route. Well, with our route, year 1, you could open 2 suites. It takes 2 months to open. We're going to fill the books right away. We're going to season the staff, right? Because if you're hiring for a flagship, you need probably 10 staff. You're going to run through 50 applicants to get 10. Probably 5 of those are going to suck, if we're being honest, right? But if you're hiring just 2 or 3 people out of the 50, so you're going to get the best, right? And so you're going to start to build your brand. So your flagship, from the day you decide to do a flagship till the day, and a flagship, guys, are like a 1,200 square foot anchored on a retail store, like a grocery store, right? And suite is inside of a salon suite building. So the day you decide to do a flagship to the day you open is going to be about a year. It just always is. You're like, how is that possible? It takes 3 months to build. But yeah, there's like permits and lease negotiation and finding a spot. It takes a while, right? So the day you decide to be a franchise owner till the day you open is about a year. In that time period, let's say Kansas City. If this were me going into Kansas City, I would pick the best area possible that I'm like, I know this area is a home run. Let's do a flagship here. Put a flagship down in that spot. At the same time, I'd pick my 2 secondary markets and I'd open suites in those areas. And I'd let them gestate. I'd let them grow and incubate. And then in a year from now, I'm already profitable in those locations. They're making me money. So by the time I open my flagship and I'm paying rents and I've got all these expenses to the flagship, the suites are supplementing the losses of the flagship until it's profitable. So I've got these incubators in place to reduce the risk. And then those suites, we can look at the 2 and be like, oh, this one's making more money than the other one. I have concrete data and I'm going to go open a flagship in that one. And then the 3rd year, I've let the other one season a little longer. I open a flagship in that one. And so this piecemeal strategy allows us to get high brand exposure, right? Because we got 3 different markets. It allows us to grow with minimal losses during the startup phase. And it allows us to use real data to know if a location will be effective or not to open. And finally, the 4th point, which I love, is it seasons your staff. It allows you to create really strong staff in a market before having to go ham all into a market and grow it with those 10 people that are not that good, right? And then it ruins your brand from the beginning. So all these things are really effective in growing the market fast and effectively and with the least amount of cost possible.
Thanks for listening to the Franchise Secrets podcast. Links to everything can be found over at franchisesecrets.com. And if you want my help with anything from starting your own franchise to growing your current franchise business, please visit scalablefranchise.com.